Peace and love. This is Mafiel.
And this is Mataza Magiel.
We're doing episode 2 of Califia Society Perspective Series. Today we will be talking about Moorish IQ and how to utilize different tools that you have available to you. But first, you must know the tools exist. So, a couple of things we wanted to shed light on was state, republic, and a couple identification tools that one as a national on his land, Aboriginal, etc., can use to identify. Anything to add?
And like, who are you talking about when you say Aboriginal to this land? Like, what?
Well, specifically, if I'm speaking about myself, I'm the Moorish American national, the original inhabitant of North, Central, and South America, and the adjoining islands.
Okay.
So, a lot of times, the policy enforcer are people who commonly call them cops, highwaymen, etc. Officer. They'll say license and registration. You were
driving
through the state of California.
Mm-hmm.
They use this type of terminology. So the reason it is important to be competent and sound in law so you won't get mistreated just for simply having the lack of knowledge. So I want to go through the Black's Law Dictionary and show you some terms such as state.
Some facts. Because state, what means probably something very different to the average minds out there. So we're looking up the black and the law term, and this is Black Law's Dictionary.
Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. This is a PDF version, so we all can see this. So most people would think a state
is like a landmass.
Right, landmass.
Yeah.
You about 100 miles to
right south.
Nevada.
Yeah.
Las Vegas. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an invisible border.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have you trained to think that, then when they say it's a privilege to travel through the state of Texas or Wyoming or New York, you'll go for that. But that type of verbiage doesn't make sense once you understand the law definition of what a state is. Yeah. So let's go over what a state is. A state is a people permanently occupying a fixed territory, bound together by common law, habits, and custom into one body politic, exercising through the medium of an organized government, independent sovereignty, and control over all persons and things within its boundaries, capable of making war and peace and entering into international relations with other communities of the globe. Then they give some case law to support what we just read. So, as you can see, a state is a group of people bound together by common law in an organized fashion with sovereignty over their borders and boundaries. So, we're not dealing with no landmass. It's actually an organization of people that have the same habits and customs. So, any nationality of people could organize amongst themselves and form a body politic, and then that body politic will exercise through a medium of organization. Once that's done, you have a state, or which is short for nation state. So once you understand that, you realize that you can't travel through the state of California. Because when you say the state of California or any state of, that's not a group of people, that's a corporation. So now we have to say who is behind the corporation, right? So now that opened up another can of worms, but I don't want to get too far off track. For right now, we understand that state is a group of people bound together by common law in an organized fashion.
And anybody could be in a state.
Right.
Just
Right.
as long as you know law and study the law.
Right.
And we're going by law, everybody. This is just, law terms and what you can lawfully do.
Now, let's go to republic. How's it go? The pledge allegiance for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, something, something.
I have, oh, wow.
Indivisible,
To the flag.
a republic, under the republic we stand, or something like that.
I don't know. I never really. Yeah.
Republic.
But then even when I was indoctrinated, I was Joe Witness. We couldn't do it. So I really was lost. These are all
a republic.
All law terms.
So republic, a commonwealth, that form of government in which the administration of affairs is open to all the citizens. In another sense, it signifies the state. So we just got through reading state. So in another sense, it signifies the group of people bound together by common law in an organized body, right? Independently of its form of government. So the people of the state, which they're on their land, when it's operating like that, that's a republic. Now, let's go down to a republican government, a government in the republican form, a government of the people, a government by representatives chosen by the people. So Venezuela has a republic form of government. Why? Because the Venezuelan people are the mayors. chief of police, anybody that has a power position is Venezuelan.
Involved with everything that's happening
Yeah, anything,
and everything.
captains,
Mm-hmm.
whoever, lieutenants, all that, they're all Venezuelan.
Mm-hmm.
All elected officials, all politicians.
They know what's going on right there in their home.
Right, there's no foreign power there telling them what to do. When it's a foreign entity, and by the way, a republic is a national government. The United States are saying you're a U.S. citizen. The United States is not a national government; it's a federal government, and federal is dealing with contracting, commercial. So when you're talking about citizenship, you have to be a citizen to something that's national. If you're not a citizen to something that's national, now you fall under stateless or ward of the state.
It's just like a product.
Hmm?
Instead of a product, like just to
Right. So
if you're not a citizen, I mean, what are you? What are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first, you need to know what form of government you in. Are you in a republic or are you in a democracy? Because those are two different styles of government. So a republic is dealing with the people of the land that organize themselves in an organized fashion and create a state. A democracy is, when you do the root word of democracy, is demo, or to destabilize or destroy, destruction. And it's a European colonial operation. That's what the United States is, a European colony. And what colonies do is they attach to somewhere foreign and just play like a leech or
Parasite.
Yeah.
They definitely need you to survive.
Now that we know what a republic is, let's go to Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. So in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, it states, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislator or of the executive when the legislator cannot be convened against domestic violence. So a republican government shall be guaranteed. That's a constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, or people that study know, that Article 6 of the Constitution, all people that say in their law enforcement take an oath to uphold the Constitution in Article 6. You can look it up.
Definitely.
Or go on fundamentals of this YouTube page.
Califia Society.
Califia Society YouTube page. And it breaks down that aspect. But just know they're all law enforcement are bound to uphold the Constitution in Article 6. So Article 4 of that contract that all law enforcement take an oath to uphold, it states everyone has a right to have a republican form of government. So once you know who you are, you're operating as a national or in a national capacity, you're on your own land, you and your own people structure organization amongst yourselves. 10, 15, 20, 100, 200, doesn't matter. Create elected officials amongst yourself, treasurer, secretary, chief executive officer, etc. Y'all start operating. Y'all are operational. Name your state body, put it on the public record, and just operate. Now you have a Republican form of government. Now you have a state. Now you're a party to the Constitution. If you're not operating in this capacity, you're not a party to the Constitution. If you're not operating in a national capacity, then you're not creating a state. Now you're subjecting yourself to a state of California, state of New York, state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because you're not part of a state. You're kind of just floating in a kind of gray area. So now you're labeled ward of the state. So you pretty much go for whatever they say, penal code, statutes, ordinances, you know, coronavirus, whatever. You're subjected to all type of things of that nature. So now we know what a, what a republic is. Now we know what a state is. So now let's go to the same contract. We're going to stay in the same contract, but we're going to flow to Article 2. Keeping in mind, we just learned about a state. I'm sorry, the Second Amendment, not Article 2, the Second Amendment of the same contract that they're bound by. We're still in the Constitution. So Article 6, all law enforcement are bound by this. So, Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The text of the Second Amendment reads in full, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security. See how they trying to interrupt?
Oh, rude.
The text of the Second Amendment reads in full. Wow, they acting up today. Wow.
No,
They're telling you the truth. Wow.
Wow.
They did not want you to see
Mm-mm.
the Second Amendment. That's horrible. Well, anyhow, how
They
about
want
that?
you to tell them they have a right to their arms.
Yeah, I want you to know that.
They don't want y'all. They don't want y'all to know right now.
Yeah, they want you to get the license after that good old screening.
Yeah, so they know who got what.
All right. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go through another source, another. Okay, here we go. Okay, good old Wikipedia. See, this one kind of commercialized. I'm trying to get the. I want to go back to the first one, but
Yeah, we're playing
I think they
commercials.
go. They go. Best footage. Oh, here you go. Bam, straight to the point. We made it. Okay. Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, I'm just bringing this up just to keep you with state in your mind. That's the theme, state.
Mhm.
This is not advocating anything, but you see where your rights is at if you operating once again in a national capacity organization amongst your people. Now you've created a state. Now, once you created a state, you have constitutional rights. What are those constitutional rights? A well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state.
Mhm.
If you're not operating like that,
Mhm.
you don't have a state. So now you need permission from a state
Mhm.
to have certain things. Now it's not even arms no more. When a person that's not operating like that,
Mhm.
you got weapons. Now you're not knowledgeable of certain things. So now your status is in a different situation now, right?
Status
Certain
means
certain things
everything.
are
Yeah.
subject to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
No
we
rights.
now know what republic means. We know what state means. And now that we know what state means, it opens up a newfound book of rules that you can use right there in the Constitution. Um, Also, when we go to the Articles of Confederation, which is another binding contract, because in Article 6 it states that the Articles of Confederation, any treaties, are the law of the land as well as the Constitution. So keep in mind we're still talking about state. But now we're in the Articles of Confederation, Article 4. So Article 4 are the Articles of Confederation, which is a binding contract. All law enforcement take an oath at Article 6 of the Constitution to uphold not only the Constitution, but the treaties and the Articles of Confederation. So, Article 4 of the Articles of Confederation states the better to secure and perpetuate mutual friendship and intercourse among the people of the different states in this union, the free inhabitants of each of these states, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives, from justice accepted, shall be entitled, to all privileges and immunities of free citizens of the several states, and the people of each state shall have free ingress and regress, which means to and from any other state, and shall enjoy therein all the privileges of trade and commerce, subject to the same duties, impositions, and restrictions as the inhabitants thereof respectively. provided that such restrictions shall not extend so far as to prevent the removal of property imported into any state to any other state, or of which the owner is an inhabitant, provided also that no imposition, that means you're not getting in the way of, you're not imposing. The root word of imposition is impose. So it's provided also that no imposition, duties, or restriction shall be laid by any state on the property of the United States or either of them. So that's anybody, US citizens or anybody for that matter.
Mhm.
You can't prohibit, restrict me going to and from any state, period. And if you do, it can't go so far as to the removal of my property or hinder my restricting me to going from to and from. So what's that mean? That means registration. If you're saying any condition on me traveling freely, any condition placed on me is a violation of Article 4 of the Articles of Confederation.
Taking your car.
Yeah, you're
You
saying you got
know,
if you got to do X, Y, Z before you can travel,
ugh.
before you can go to and from each state, you got to do X, Y, Z. That's a violation. That's called an imposition. They're imposing on your travel. So don't say a blanket statement like I got the right to travel. You just kind of go through these channels and it'll speak for itself that you got the right to travel. You don't need to, you know. So once again, Moorish IQ and knowing the tools that are available to you. So, and keep in mind, we're talking about state. So you heard the state verbiage all through here. So keep all these things in context as you're reading. And now that you know a state is not a border, we're dealing with language such as shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states. So let's let that sink in. So now we're dealing with identification. Once again, as a national, let's go to CRM 1508. One of my favorites stands for Criminal Resource Manual 1508, which comes from the Department of Justice, or some say DOJ. So as you can see, this United States website. Under specifically mentioned identification documents, this can also be found in Title 18 United States Codes, Section 1028. Section 1028 of Title 18 designates 3 special non-federal identification documents and gives them preferred treatment. These 3 documents, in the absence of a national identity card, are the prime means by which an individual establishes his identity in the United States. These 3 documents are A, birth certificate, B, driver's license, and C, personal identification. So now they're going more specific on birth certificate. It states birth certificate, which is in quotations, is not defined in 18 USC subsection 1028 as what? This is called specifically mentioned identification documents. So the birth certificate is not mentioned as an identification document. Why? Since they say out their own mouth, since it's self-explanatory, this document this document is issued by different agencies in different states and foreign countries. Nevertheless, it represents the official government governmental statement by the proper government agency that a person having such a name was born on a particular date in a particular place, right? And the document pertains to him. There are few physical characteristics that remain the same as those at the time of birth. Nevertheless, the birth certificate has been commonly accepted. Now you see it's in quotation marks as an identification document in this country, since everybody going for it, right? Now B, driver's license. Once again, is not defined in 18 USC 1028 as identification. The original purpose of this government issued document was to state that a particular person was authorized to operate a vehicle upon the public roadways. It was not intended to establish one's identity. So that's not even identity.
Right. And so you're saying that you only need a license to drive, and we're traveling.
Right.
So that's what it's pretty much hitting on as far as the driver's license. Like, we don't need a driver's license.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's just to operate commercially,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll go into. But for right now, since we're dealing with identity, we know that that's not even identity out of the Department of Justice handbook or resource manual, criminal resource manual. It was not even intended to establish one's identity. Because of the absence of a better document, however, the driver's license eventually has become commonly accepted. And it's in quotations. Commonly accepted as what? As the national identity card.
Mm.
So they're saying since nobody is operating as a national or international capacity compared to the people who don't even know what that is,
That are just
the
using
driver's license has
it.
been commonly accepted as a national identity card. Section 1028 covers both domestic as well as foreign government issued driver's licenses, right? So, as we see, the national identity card would be number one on the pecking order because they're saying, in absence of a national identity card, the prime means by one identifies itself in the United States are birth certificate, driver's license, and personal ID. If you don't have that, but if you do, these ones are secondary and irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And they go into saying why they're secondary and irrelevant. Because they weren't intended to establish identity. But for the lack of knowledge of this, or because people have been intentionally dumbed down not to know this and not deal in their national capacity,
Right.
now the people don't know.
Yeah, nobody deals with
Right.
nationality.
Right. It's a big melting pot. Everybody, oh, I'm a U.S. citizen.
Mm-hmm.
But if your nationality, matter of fact, let's go to that. Let's just go to nationality. Let's go back to the law dictionary. So they don't want you. They don't want you having a jurisdictional position or being rooted or foundated in something. They want the lines to be blurred so you can be subjected to foreign policy.
Mm.
What we looking for?
National.
Okay.
Yeah, because nationality is the order of the day.
Yeah.
Yes,
So nationality.
it's more important than you think
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
ever imagine. It really is, guys.
So nationality, that quality or character which arises from the fact of a person belonging to a nation or state, right?
Hmm.
Nationality determines the political status of the individual, especially with reference to allegiance, while domicile determines civil status. Nationality arises either by birth or by naturalization, right? So back to state, back to republic for that matter.
Hmm.
So if you have the right to have a nation state, and we just got to reading Criminal Resource Manual 1508, 1508, dealing with national identification. So if you're dealing with national identification, that must mean you're dealing with nationality.
And nationals. National thing just keeps coming up. Like, yes.
So if you're not dealing in a national capacity or have a national identification card, you become subject and become ward of the state or ward of the state because you're not part of a state or nation or you have no nationality.
And if you don't have no nationality, they'll brand you one.
So no nationality card, that means you're identifying as a corporate ward because either nationality card or birth certificate, driver's license. These are commercial instruments that have expirations dates. They have expiration dates, mind you. So that shows you it's a money grab. Simple personal identification, not even driver's license, just a simple personal identification has an expiration date. So just to have that, you have to pay some fee when that run out. You got to go renew that. So think about that. Okay. So now, let's go to since we are Moors, see the flag. So our particular nationality, so we're dealing with nation state, national, nationality. Our nationality is Moorish American. So let's go to HR 1203, which is House Resolution 1203. And it happens to be a judicial act. And I'll show you why that's important after we go over HR 1203.
If you're asking what's a Moor, who's a Moor?
Oh, a Moor is any dark-skinned person. I keep forgetting I gotta put George. They always try to bury this where it's like hard to even pull this up. Pull it up easy. Huh? Oh, here we go.
You look for specific. Yes.
Not even the right one. Well, you see, it's Moorish American Holy Week at the
Yes.
state capitol, but I want to get the whole thing.
Yes. Moors would be considered a nationality.
Yes, definitely a
And
nationality.
so if you consider yourself black, um, that wouldn't be considered a nationality or colored
Bingo.
or
Right.
Negro.
So black would be what you call an adjective, what describes the person. It wouldn't be a person, place, or thing. So black wouldn't be a nationality. That would be an adjective or a social construct.
Right. Yeah. And
So this is 1203. Now, recognizing January 8th through the 15th, 2014 as Moorish American Holy Week at the state capitol and for other purposes, whereas Moorish Americans, whose ancient forefathers are the mothers and fathers of humanity or of the human family, stand in these days as a commodity of descendants from the ancient Moabites and Canaanites who were permitted by the old pharaohs of Kemet to traverse from East Africa and later formed kingdoms extended from northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa and the Atlantic islands onto the present day continental Americas. And whereas Moorish Americans are teaching their people their true nationality and divine creed, and that they may become better citizens and know they are not Negroes, colored folk, black people, nor Afros, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865. In this era of time, as all nations are seeking peace, the indigenous Moorish American people of the Americas are now united to link themselves with the family of nations, whereas Moorish Americans, being aboriginal to the territories of North, Central, and South America, have formed a sovereign theocratic government and guided by the common principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice through their virtue of the universal right of self-determination, as well as the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, guaranteed in the Charter of the United Nations. And whereas on January 8, 1886, Noble Drew Ali was born in the state of North Carolina and became the first patriot of his Moorish American people, and in 1912 was anointed El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali by the head of Egypt in the holy city of Mecca to return to the United States as the prophet and founding father of the newly risen nation of Moorish Americans. On January 15, 1865, slavery was abolished in the United States with the congressional ratification of the 13th Amendment, and the Moorish Americans, through self-determination, are unfolding as a pure and clean nation. They are who their forefathers were yesterday. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives that the members of this body recognize January 8th through 15th, 2014 as Moorish America Holy Week for cultural appreciation and affirmation. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the House of Representatives is authorized and directed to transmit an appropriate copy of this resolution to the public and the press. So, what we just read in summary, Moors are Aboriginal and Indigenous to the Americas, North, Central, and South America. So now that we're have the understanding that we're Aboriginal and Indigenous, keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that resolution or House Resolution 1203 is a judicial act. It was in Georgia. This judicial act was in Georgia. So let's go back to the Constitution before we go to the rights of indigenous people. Let's go to Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution.
Article 4?
Yeah. All right.
You want Article?
What I put? Article 2?
No, you put Article 1.
Uh,
No, you didn't put no article, actually. It just went to Article 1.
There you go. Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. And the Congress may by general laws prescribe the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved and the effect thereof. So we just got through reading a judicial act from the state of Georgia, and it was a record of House Resolution 1203 that stated Moorish Americans are Aboriginal indigenous to the Americas, North, Central, and South. So we can use Article 4, Section 1 in conjunction with that
Mhm.
to prove not only are they bound to uphold House Resolution 1203, which authenticates our position, not authenticates, but it's something in their law that's stating that anytime something's decided, it is what it is. That's the law.
Mhm.
So it's been decided that Moorish Americans are Aboriginal and indigenous,
Mhm.
even in their law.
Right.
So we're going to use that against them.
Their
So
word.
now that we covered that, now we can go to the rights of indigenous people, since we already covered that Moorish Americans are indigenous
Mhm.
to the Americas. So we are American, the true American citizens, but we're not United States citizens. Okay. Now, keep in mind, Criminal Resource Manual 1508. Still keep that in mind as we're going through the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So as we look at the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which is a charter, which was chartered by the Organization of American States, which the United States is a part of. So once again, keep in mind, national identification. Keep in mind, HR 1203, indigenous people have the right to self-determination. Keep these things in mind as we're going through the rights of indigenous people. Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, since we know now that Moorish Americans are indigenous to America. So this is an inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It's only fitting that we're going through this since Moors are Aboriginal indigenous to America. So, so just a real quick, their preamble, recognizing that the rights of the indigenous people are both essential and of historical significance to the presence and future of the Americas. The important presence in the Americas of indigenous people and their immense contribution to development, plurality, and cultural diversity, and reiterating our commitment to their economic and social well-being, as well as the obligation to respect their rights and cultural identity. That the existence of indigenous cultures and people of the Americas is important to humanity. Reaffirming that indigenous people are original diverse societies with their own identities that constitute an integral part of the Americas. Concerned that indigenous people have suffered from historical injustices as a result of inter alia, their colonization and dispossession of their lands, territories, and resources, thus preventing them from exercising, in particular, their right to development in accordance with their own needs and interests. Recognizing the urgent need to respect and promote the inherent rights of indigenous people, which derive from their political, economic, and social structures, and from their cultural, spiritual tradition, histories, and philosophies, especially their rights to their lands, territories, and resources. I wanted to highlight that before we got into the articles. Article 1. The American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People applies to the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Once again, we just read H.R. 1203. Moorish Americans are Aboriginal indigenous to the Americas. So this applies to us. Article 1, Section 2. Self-identification as indigenous peoples will be a fundamental criterion for determining whom this declaration applies. States shall respect the right to such self-identification as indigenous, whether individually or collectively, in keeping with the practices and institutions of each indigenous people. So we have self-identification, right? Like I showed you earlier, my nationality card, and we looked at Criminal Resource Manual 1508, which states national identification, nationality card, nationality, we just read, right? Determines what nation you're from, what state you're from, right? So all this kind of goes hand in hand. Self-identification, national identity card, self-identification, national identity card.
Right.
Right. So once again,
Right.
we're dealing with tools, we're dealing with Moorish competency, and we're dealing with, once you know these tools, how to implement and apply these tools and be able to explain these things in such a way that it's crystal clear. Is there anything you wanted to touch on?
Well, yeah, many things, but no, but it's just important to know law and just to understand from that aspect. And I guess, walk knowing the law terms. So we could just stay focused on what's really going on out there.
Yeah.
Because it seems like when we don't know law and other states do, you know, they might use what they can against us.
Yeah.
Our ignorance against us. So it's just important to understand, learn it, and understand it as much as you can, just so you don't get swindled. That
Right.
from somebody who understands, who has more knowledge about the law than you do,
Right.
so they
Right.
can kind of swindle you.
Right.
So it's important for you to stand up for yourself, and you have the right to stand up for yourself. So
Right. Right. Well, I'd like to thank you. This has been episode 2 of Califia Society Perspective Series, Moorish Competency. Hopefully this has been enlightful. This is Mafiel.
this is Mataza Magiel.
Peace and love to all.
Islam.
Islam.